I can even show you how I can open some of the doors with some of the keys. Right? I mean, how much information do you need in order to be really convinced? The only thing I can't do is open that door. That's one thing I can't do. But I can give you some evidence through which and by which you can come to believe that what I'm saying is true. And that's what we believe God has done. God has chosen human beings to be a vehicle through which He has revealed His message. Those human beings have come with some evidences, some signs, some things through which and by which we could know that they are speaking the truth. So we could know what's the purpose of our life. Why is the world the way it is? Why is there so much suffering in the world? These are not questions about the existence of God. These are questions about why does God let these things happen? And how should I fulfill my created purpose? That is why we believe God has sent messengers. He has sent books. And what we believe and what we are, and all the messengers and all of us, and without doubt all the religions in one way or another, all have a very, very serious message. It's not something that anybody should ignore. I would just like to say to you that I'm not really providing you any concrete conclusions here. I've told you what I believe the purpose of life is, according to what the Quran says. The evidence for me is that I personally have tried to live my life according to that way. And I have seen what it has done to me and how it has transformed me personally. And that's a very strong indication for me that what the Quran teaches is true. But it's not a proof for you. You can't, obviously you can't step in my shoes. You can't, I can just tell you that. That's my experience. And of course I freely admit that lots of other people following other religions would claim exactly the same thing. But there are other ways. There are things you can use. So I would simply invite everybody, and I include the Muslims here, right, to pick up the Quran and to read it and to think deeply about it. Not only to pick it and read it, no, to sit and think deeply about it. Whether you do it on your own or you do it two of you together, this is what the Quran invites you to do. It's really the Quran invites you to do. The Quran simply invites you to read this book and to think about it. That is my invitation, and I think that if you read it and you think about it deeply, then the conclusion that I have come to, I am sure, is the same conclusion that you will come to, and you will reach that certainty in your heart that the Quran is what it claims to be from God, that Muhammad is, may God's peace and blessings be upon him, what he claimed to be the Prophet of God, and that you will discover the reality of why we exist. What's the purpose of our life? How you can truly live a truly fulfilling, peaceful, tranquil and harmonious existence that will benefit you in this life, and most certainly it will benefit you in the life to come. May God guide you, and may God guide me and all of us close to the truth. Assalamu alaikum, jazakallah.
Brother Abdur-raheem, what event in your life sealed your decision that Islam was to be the way to live your life?
Okay, that's a good question. Nice, easy question. It was indeed reading a translation of the Quran and thinking about it deeply. So I was really inviting you to do something that had the most significant impact on me personally. That's really what it was. I picked up a copy of the Quran, a translation of it anyway, and I began reading it. And 2 weeks later I was still reading it. And I remember I was sitting in the train, going over a bridge on the Thames. Must have been going then to Victoria train station. Looked out of the window, looked back at the Quran I was reading, and I said to myself, if I have ever read a book that is from God, this is it. And so I would say that really is the moment that suppose, the moment I accepted Islam to be the truth, the Quran to be from God. And that's it. That's the main event, I would say. Just give me the ones you want. Okay. If God knows our destiny, doesn't that mean we don't have free will? Okay. There is not a logical connection. If you think about it, it's you know, the statement is not logically consistent. And I will give you an example. I'm sure you went to school, right? Yeah, when you did A-levels, you still do A-levels? Yeah? You don't do O-levels though, do you? GCSEs. When I was at school, GCSEs were like dumb people. You know, but anyway. So, in A-levels, does your teacher predict your grades? Yeah? And so if your teacher predicted your grade and you got the grade that she predicted, does that mean she forced you to get that grade? So therefore your statement is logically inconsistent. The fact that your teacher knows or predicts what you're going to get does not mean that she forced you to get that grade or this grade. You're making a false connection between knowing something about someone and that person doing that thing. The fact that Allah knows a lot better than your teacher, in fact Allah's knowledge is perfect. So God knows exactly what you are going to do. He knows exactly where you're going to end up. He will know whether you pass the test of life or not. But the fact that He knows it in no way means that He forced you to do this or to do that, any more than your teacher forced you to pass or fail your grade. The fact of knowing it, or even the fact of writing it down, as your teacher also writes down the grades that she or he thinks you're going to get, does not compel you to get those grades, right? You still have to make the choice. So the fact that Allah knows it and the fact that Allah wrote it does not mean that Allah compelled you to do it. You still chose to behave the way that you did and to do the things that you did. It is true that you couldn't have done it unless God let you do it. If God had wanted to stop you, He could have, right? That's true. So in reality, you're free. You don't have absolute free will because your free will is subject to Allah's will, meaning that if He didn't allow you to do it, you wouldn't be able to do it, right? But that is what Allah has given us the choice. He's given us the choice to choose to obey Him or to disobey Him. That is our choice. That's the reality of our human condition. The fact that Allah knows it, the fact that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wrote it, does not mean that Allah compelled you to obey Him or disobey Him. Which part of the Quran should we read first and ponder on? That is a good question. I would generally start with the beginning and end at the end, but you don't have to. Some people might find that confusing. In fact, it might actually be quite good to go backwards. Start with the smaller chapters at the back and sort of read backwards. That actually might not be a bad idea, to sort of go backwards through the Quran, because the surahs at the end are very concise, they're very short, they're really quite easy to get to grips with. Whereas, for example, the second chapter of the Quran, Surah Al-Baqarah, especially, is, it has a lot of things, to do with laws and of inheritance and so on and so forth. Yeah. So, but to tell you the truth, I'm not recommending that you read the Quran with the intention of trying to grasp every single detail. No. You're reading the Quran initially to get a good idea about the general concepts. The general concept, what is it talking about God? What is it talking about revelation, prophethood?